All right, we're going to try something new. I'm going to be reading out loud. I figured this would be an opportunity for me to read out loud. I'm going to be reading tonight Plato's Apology from the great books, or the great conversation set from Britannica, the company. And so tonight's reading is really the first of 10 years of suggested reading. So I figured, hey, why not record it? Why not put it out there? Feel free to let me know if this is like illegal. As far as I know, Plato is, free to read, and I don't think I'm reading any editorial notes or anything like that. But please leave something in the comments. I know I'm not sure how many people are interested in this kind of thing. Just kind of thought on a whim tonight, let's go after it. I can always re-record it later. But this is a great way to kind of put this out there and see if anybody's interested. So Plato, Apology. How you, O Athenians, have been affected by my accusers, I cannot tell, but I know that they almost made me forget who I was. So persuasively did they speak, and yet they have hardly uttered a word of truth. But of the many falsehoods told by them, there is one which quite amazed me. I mean, when they said that you should be upon your guard and not allow yourselves to be deceived by the force of my eloquence. To say this, when they were certain to be detected as soon as I opened my lips and proved myself to be anything but a great speaker, did indeed appear to me most shameless. Unless by the force of eloquence they mean the force of truth. For if such is their meaning, I admit that I am eloquent. But in how different a way from theirs? Well, as I was saying, they have scarcely spoken the truth at all. But from me you shall hear the whole truth, not, however, delivered after their manner in a set oration duly ornamented with words and phrases. No, by heaven, but I shall use the words and arguments which occur to me at the moment, for I am confident in the justice of my cause. At my time of life I ought not to be appearing before you, O men of Athens, in the character of a juvenile orator. Let no one expect it of me, and I must beg of you to grant me a favor. If I defend myself in my accustomed manner, and you hear me using the words which I have been in the habit of using in the agora, at the tables of the money changers, or anywhere else, I would ask you not to be surprised, and not to interrupt me on this account. For I am more than 70 years of age, and appearing now for the first time in a court of law, I am quite a stranger to the language of the place, and therefore I would have you regard me as if I was really a stranger. I'm going to check real quick to make sure that I'm in here. All right. Let's see. I would have you regard me as if I was really a stranger. 18. Whom you would excuse if he spoke in his native tongue and after the fashion of his country. Am I making an unfair request of you? Never mind the manner which may or may not be good, but let the speaker speak truly and the judge decide justly. Let the judge decide justly. And first I have to reply to the older charges in my first accusers, and then I will go on to the later ones. For of old I have had many accusers who have accused me falsely to you during many years, and I am more afraid of them than of Anytus and his associates, who are dangerous too in their own way. But far more dangerous are the others, who began when you were children and took possession of your minds with their falsehoods, telling of one Socrates, a wise man who speculated about the heaven above, and searched into the earth beneath, and made the worse appear the better cause. The disseminators of this tale are the accusers whom I dread, for their hearers are apt to fancy that such inquirers do not believe in the existence of the gods. And they are many, and their charges against me are of ancient date, and they are made by them in the days when you were more impressible than you are now, in childhood, or it may have been in youth. And the cause when heard went by default, for there was none to answer. And hardest of all, I do not know and cannot tell the names of my accusers, unless in the chance case of a comic poet. All who from envy and malice have persuaded you, some of them having first convinced themselves, all this class of men are most difficult to deal with, for I cannot have them up here and cross-examine them, and therefore I must simply fight with shadows in my own defense, and argue when there is no one who answers. I will ask you then to assume with me, as I was saying, that my opponents are of two kinds, one recent, the other ancient, and I hope that you will see the propriety of my answering the latter first, for these accusations you heard long before the others, and much oftener. And I'm just at this moment, I believe, I'm going into this almost blind. I believe this is Socrates giving an apology before his execution, which I read the short little biography of Plato here at the beginning. And my belief is that Plato witnessed the execution of Socrates. And so this is kind of part of the dialogues that Socrates is having, I suppose, with the Athenians of Greece. I know I'm sounding like complete drivel. Remember, I'm a music major. I just like to read and I like to understand the world around me. So please feel free to leave comments. I know there's like nobody watching. That's all right. But okay. So I'm at number 19 in this book. I'm not exactly how these are separated. Number 19. Okay. Well then, I must make my defense and endeavor to clear away in a short time a slander which has lasted a long time. May I succeed, if to succeed be for my good and yours, or likely to avail me in my cause. The task is not an easy one. I quite understand the nature of it, and so leaving the event with God in obedience to the law, I will now make my defense. I will begin at the beginning and ask what is the accusation which has given rise to the slander of me, and in fact has encouraged Meletus to prefer this charge against me. Well, what did the slanderers say? They shall be my prosecutors, and I will sum up their words in an affidavit. Socrates is an evildoer and a curious person who searches into things under the earth and in heaven, and he makes the worse appear the better cause, and he teaches the aforesaid doctrines to others. Such is the nature of the accusation. It is just what you have yourselves seen in the comedy of Aristophanes, who has introduced a man whom he calls Socrates, going about and saying that he walks in air and talking a deal of nonsense concerning matters of which I do not pretend to know either much or little. Not that I mean to speak disparagingly of anyone who is a student of natural philosophy. I should be very sorry if Meletus could bring so grave a charge against me. But the simple truth is, O Athenians, that I have nothing to do with physical speculations. Very many of these here present are witnesses to the truth of this, and to them I appeal. Speak then, you who have heard me, and tell your neighbors whether any of you have ever known me hold forth in few words or in many upon such matters. You hear their answer, and from what they say of this part of the charge, you will be able to judge of the truth of the rest. As little foundation is there for the report that I am a teacher and take money, this accusation has no more truth in it than the other. Although, if a man were really able to instruct mankind, to receive money for giving instruction would, in my opinion, be an honor to him. There is Georgius of Leontium, the Prodicus of Chios, and Hippias of Elis. If anybody watching this now or in the future can help me provide a little bit more context for those, or maybe pronunciation or relevance, I'd love to learn more about these people. Okay. And are able to persuade the young men to leave their own citizens by whom they might be taught for nothing. 20. And come to them whom they not only pay, but are thankful if they may be allowed to pay them. There is at this time a Parian philosopher residing in Athens, of whom I have heard, and I came to hear of him in this way. I came across a man who has spent a world of money on the sophists, Callias, the son of Hipponicus, and knowing that he had sons, I asked him, Callias, I said, if your own two sons were foals or calves, there would be no difficulty in finding someone to put over them. We should hire a trainer of horses, or a farmer probably, who would improve and perfect them in their own proper virtue and excellence. But as they are human beings, whom are you thinking of placing over them? Is there anyone who understands human and political virtue? You must have thought about the matter, for you have sons. Is there any one? There is, he said. Who is he, said I, and of what country, and what does he charge? Evenus the Parian, he replied. He is the man, and his charge is 5 minae, M-I-N-A, help. Happy is Evenus, I said to myself, if he really has this wisdom and teaches at such a moderate charge. Had I the same, I should have been very proud and conceited, but the truth is that I have no knowledge of the kind. I dare say, Athenians, that someone among that some one among you will reply, "Yes, Socrates, but what about the origin of these accusations which are brought against you? There must have been something strange which you have been doing. All these rumors and all this talk about you would never have arisen if you had been like other men. Tell us then, what is the cause of them, for we should be sorry to judge hastily of you." Now I regard this as a fair challenge, and I will endeavor to explain to you the reason why I am called wise and have such an evil fame. Please to attend then. Please to attend then. And although some of you may think I am joking, I declare that I will tell you the entire truth. Men of Athens, this reputation of mine has come of a certain sort of wisdom which I possess. If you ask me what kind of wisdom, I reply, wisdom such as may, perhaps, be attained by man. For to that extent I am inclined to believe that I am wise, whereas the persons of whom I was speaking have a superhuman wisdom, which I may fail to describe because I have it not myself. And he who says that I have speaks falsely and is taking away my character. And here, O men of Athens, I must beg you not to interrupt me, even if I seem to say something extravagant. For the word which I will speak is not mine. I will refer you to the witness who is worthy of credit. That witness shall be the god of Delphi. He will tell you about my wisdom, if I have any, and of what sort it is. You must have known Cherophone, help again, Chaerephon. He was clearly a friend of mine and also a friend of yours, 21, for he shared in the recent exile of the people and returned with you. Well, Cherophone, as you know, was very impetuous in all his doings, and he went to Delphi and boldly asked the oracle to tell him whether, as I was saying, I must beg you not to interrupt. He asked the oracle to tell him whether anyone was wiser than I was. And the Pythian prophetess answered that there was no man wiser. Cherophon is dead himself, but his brother, who is in court, will confirm the truth of what I am saying. Why do I mention this? Because I am going to explain to you why I have such an evil name. When I heard the answer, I said to myself, what can the god mean? And what is the interpretation of his riddle? For I know that I have no wisdom, small or great. What then can he mean when he says that I am the wisest of men, and yet he is a god and cannot lie? That would be against his nature. After long consideration, I thought of a method of trying the question. I reflected that if I could only find a man wiser than myself, then I might go to the god with a refutation in my hand. I should say to him, here is a man who is wiser than I am, but you said I was the wisest. Accordingly, I went to one who had the reputation of wisdom and observed him. His name I need not mention. He was a politician whom I selected for examination. And the result was as follows. When I began to talk with him, I could not help but thinking he was not really wise, although he was thought wise by many and still wiser by himself. And thereupon I tried to explain to him that he thought himself wise, but was not really wise, and the consequence was that he hated me. And my enmity was shared by several who were present and heard me. So I left him, saying to myself as I went away, well, although I do not suppose that either of us knows anything really beautiful and good, I am better off than he is, for he knows nothing and thinks that he knows. I neither know nor think that I know. In this latter particular, then, I seem to have slightly the advantage of him. Then I went to another who had still higher pretensions to wisdom, and my conclusion was exactly the same. Whereupon I made another enemy of him, and many others besides him. Then I went to one man after another, being not unconscious of the enmity which I was provoked, and I lamented and feared this. But necessity was laid upon me. The word of God, I thought, ought to be considered first. And I said to myself, go, I must to all who appear to know. 22. And find out the meaning of the oracle. And I swear to you, Athenians, by the dog I swear. For I must tell you the truth. The result of my mission was just this. I found that the men most in repute were all but the most foolish, and the others less esteemed were really wiser and better. I will tell you the tale of my wanderings and of the Herculean labors, as I may call them, which I endured only to find at last the oracle irrefutable. After the politicians, I went to the poets, tragic, dithyrambic, help me out again, and all sorts. And there I said to myself, you will be instantly detected. Now you will find out that you are more ignorant than they are. Accordingly, I took them some of the most elaborate passages in their own writings and asked what was the meaning of them, thinking that they would teach me something. Will you believe me? I am almost ashamed to confess the truth, but I must say that there is hardly a person present who would not have talked better about their poetry than they did themselves. Then I knew that not by wisdom do poets write poetry, but by a sort of genius and inspiration. They are like diviners or soothsayers, who also say many fine things, but do not understand the meaning of them. The poets appeared to me to be much better in the same case, and I further observed that upon the strength of their poetry they believed themselves to be the wisest of men in other things in which they were not wise. So I departed, conceiving myself to be superior to them for the same reason that I was superior to the politicians. At last I went to the artisans, for I was conscious that I knew nothing at all, as I may say, and I was sure that they knew many fine things. And here I was not mistaken, for they did know many things of which I was ignorant, and in this they certainly were wiser than I was. But I observed that even the good artisans fell into the same error as the poets. Because they were good workmen, they thought that they also knew all sorts of high matters, and this defect in them overshadowed their wisdom. And therefore I asked myself on behalf of the oracle whether I would like to be as I was, neither having their knowledge nor their ignorance, or like them in both. And I made answer to myself and to the oracle that I was better off as I was. This inquisition has led to my having many enemies of the worst and most dangerous kind, and has given occasion also to many calumnies. Is it like calamity? Calumnies? And I am called wise, for my hearers always imagine that I myself possess the wisdom which I find wanting in others. But the truth is, O men of Athens, that God only is wise, and by his answer he intends to show that the wisdom of men is worth little or nothing. He is not speaking of Socrates. He is only using my name by way of illustration, as if he said, "He, O man, is the wisest, who, like Socrates, knows that his wisdom is in truth worth nothing." And so I go about the world, obedient to the God, and then search and make inquiry into the wisdom of anyone, whether citizen or stranger, who appears to be wise. And if he is not wise, then in vindication of the oracle, I show him that he is not wise. And my occupation quite absorbs me, and I have no time to give either to any public matter of interest or to any concern of my own, but I am in utter poverty by reason of my devotion to the God. There is another thing. Young men of the richer classes who have not much to do come about me of their own accord. They like to hear the pretenders examined, they often imitate me, and proceed to examine others. There are plenty of persons, as they quickly discover, who think that they know something but really know little or nothing. And then those who are examined by them, instead of being angry with themselves, are angry with me. "This confounded Socrates," they say, "this villainous misleader of youth." And then if somebody asks them, why, what evil does he practice or teach? They do not know and cannot tell. But in order that they may not appear to be at a loss, they repeat the ready-made charges which are used against all philosophers about teaching things up in the clouds or under the earth, and having no gods, and making the worse appear the better cause. For they do not like to confess that their pretense of knowledge has been detected, which is the truth. And as they are numerous and ambitious and energetic, and are drawn up in a battle array and have persuasive tongues, they have filled your ears with their loud and inveterate calumnies. I'm going to figure out an easier way to say that. And this is the reason why my three accusers, Meletus and Anytus and Lycon, have set upon me. Meletus, who has a quarrel with me on behalf of the poets, Anytus on behalf of the craftsmen and politicians, Lycon on behalf of the rhetoricians. And as I said at the beginning, I cannot expect to get rid of such a massive calumny all in a moment. And this, O men of Athens, is the truth and the whole truth. I have concealed nothing, I have dissembled nothing, and yet I know that my plainness of speech makes them hate me. And what is their hatred but a proof that I am speaking the truth? Hence has arisen the prejudice against me, and this is the reason of it, as you will find out either in this or in any future inquiry. I have said enough in my defense against the first class of my accusers. I turn to the second class. They are headed by Meletus, the good man and true lover of his country, as he calls himself. Against these two I must try to make a defense. Let their affidavit be read. It contains something of this kind. It says that Socrates is a doer of evil who corrupts the youth and who does not believe in the gods of the state, but has other new divinities of his own. Such is the charge, and now let us examine the particular counts. He says that I am a doer of evil and corrupt the youth, but I say, O men of Athens, that Meletus is a doer of evil, and that he pretends to be in earnest when he is only in jest, and is so eager to bring men to trial from a pretended zeal and interest about matters in which he really never had the smallest interest. And the truth of this I will endeavor to prove to you. Come hither, Meletus, and let me ask you a question of you. Do you think a great deal about the improvement of youth? Yes, I do. Tell the judges, then, who is their improver, for you must know, as you have taken the pains to discover their corrupter, and are citing and accusing me before them. Speak, then, and tell the judges who their improver is. Observe, Meletus, that you are silent and have nothing to say. But is not this rather disgraceful and a very considerable proof of what I was saying, that you have no interest in the matter? Speak up, friend, and tell us who their improver is. The laws. But that, my good sir, is not my meaning. I want to know who the person is who, in the first place, knows the laws. The judges, Socrates, who are present in the court. What do you mean to say, Meletus, that they are able to instruct and improve youth? Certainly they are. What, all of them, or some only and not others? All of them. By the goddess Here, that is good news. There are plenty of improvers then. And what do you say of the audience? Do they improve them? Yes, they do. And the senators? Yes, the senators improve them. But perhaps the members of the assembly corrupt them, or do they too improve them? They improve them. Then every Athenian improves and elevates them, all with the exception of myself, and I alone am their corrupter. Is that what you affirm? That is what I stoutly affirm. I am very unfortunate if you are right. But suppose I ask you a question. How about horses? Does one man do harm and all the world good? Is not the exact opposite the truth? One man is able to do them good, or at least not many. The trainer of horses, that is to say, does them good, and others who have to do with them rather injure them. Is not that true, Meletus, of horses or of any other animals? Most assuredly it is, whether you and Anytus say yes or no. Happy indeed would the condition of youth if they had one corrupter only, and all the rest of the world were their improvers. But you, Meletus, have sufficiently shown that you never had a thought about the young. Your carelessness is seen in your not caring about the very things which you bring against me. And now, Meletus, I will ask you one other question. By Zeus, I will. Which is better, to live among bad citizens or among good ones? Answer, friend, I say. The question is one which may be easily answered. Do not the good do their neighbors good, and the bad do them evil? Certainly. And is there anyone who would rather be injured than benefited by those who live with him? Answer, my good friend. The law requires you to answer. Does anyone like to be injured? Certainly not. When you accuse me of interrupting and deteriorating the youth, do you allege that I corrupt them intentionally or unintentionally? Intentionally, I say. But you have just admitted that the good do their neighbors good and evil do them evil. Now, is that a truth which your superior wisdom has recognized thus early in life, and am I, at my age, in such darkness and ignorance as not to know that if a man with whom I have to live is corrupted by me, I am very likely to be harmed by him, and yet I corrupt him? And intentionally, too, so you say, although neither I nor any other human being is ever likely to be convinced by you. So that's where I'm going to stop tonight. That's, I guess, page 26. I'm looking at these numbers in here. Got like number 26, but I think it started like 14. So I read about like 12. Oh, there's Credo. Let's see, where does the Credo start? So Apology will end after about number 42. So we're at 26 now. 4 more pages, probably about another hour or 45 minutes, just like this. And we'll finish up Apology. All right, so far, I think if I had to summarize what we've read, we've heard about Socrates explaining his predicament, that there are three classes of people who claim that he is harming the society in which they live, and that's why he's to be put to death, and in three different ways. Basically, he's gone to an oracle. Socrates has gone to an oracle, learned from the god that he is the wisest one on earth. And obviously, I think, this is a metaphor, right, written by Plato about a person, maybe a real person named Socrates. And the idea is that Socrates knows nothing and is the wisest person in the world. And his method of going around, right? And I'm showing a little bit of bias here because of what I've heard of Socrates. So, what he's doing, he's going around and inquiring people about their knowledge and realizing that they don't know what they claim to know, and exposing that by asking how they know. So I'm really intrigued by this. I'm glad that this is actually the first section out of the Great Conversations series. If you're interested in this set, it's the Britannica, the Great Conversations book set. If you're interested in looking up the 10-year reading plan, that is what I've just begun. This is the very first reading out of the 10-year reading plan out of the great set. My dad has gifted me his father's set. My dad told me that he only made it through year one. And so hopefully by live streaming, reading out loud, it will give me a chance to vocalize what I've learned. It'll give anybody watching this a chance to comment, share information with me, help me correct my pronunciations. Like I said, I'm not a philosopher. I haven't read very many old or ancient texts. Everything that I've learned about them, I've been through like my history classes, literature classes, all basic core curriculum type stuff. So hopefully by reading these things, I can get a little bit deeper. Maybe some of the audience who's watching will be able to Google things as I'm reading and provide answers in the comments. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. We'll be back soon. I don't know if we're going to have a schedule. Maybe I'll do this nightly, try to put on like a half hour or an hour each day, or at least a couple hours a week, chopped up somehow. So y'all have a good night.